Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I am Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India's Dr. S. Jaishankar strongly pitches for countering three evils of terrorism, extremism and separatism at the SCO Summit in Islamabad. US raises concerns with Israel over a bombing campaign in Beirut, gives 30 days deadline to boost humanitarian aid into Gaza. Early voting for the US elections begins. In the battleground state of Georgia, voters turn out in record numbers. The rule requiring hand count of election ballots blocked by a judge. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar participated in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Council of Heads of Government meeting on Wednesday. The 23rd meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Council of Heads of Government is being held in Pakistan's capital Islamabad. India remains actively engaged in the SCO format, participating in various mechanisms and initiatives within the organization. This is the first high-level visit of an Indian foreign minister to the neighboring nation in 9 years. Earlier in the day, Dr. Jaishankar planted an Arjuna sapling at the Indian High Commission under the initiative Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam, or the One Tree for Mother campaign. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar delivered India's statement at the SCO Council of Heads of Government meeting this morning in Islamabad. In his address, the minister flagged concerns over terrorism and extremism. He noted that the SCO needs to be able and adept at responding to challenges facing us in a turbulent world. The minister said that SCO's primary goal of combating terrorism, separatism and extremism is even more crucial in the current times. It requires honest conversation, trust and good neighborliness and reaffirming commitment to SCO Charter. The SCO grouping needs to be firm and uncompromising in countering the three evils, Jaishankar said. He added that globalization and rebalancing are current day realities which need to be taken forward by the SCO countries. He asserted that cooperation must be based on mutual respect and sovereign equality, and that it should recognize the territorial integrity and sovereignty of nations. The minister also stressed that industrial cooperation can enhance competitiveness and expand labour markets. He highlighted that collaborative connectivity and environmental protection are possible avenues. Dr. Jaishankar noted that Indian initiatives and endeavours like DPI, Women-Led Development, International Solar Alliance hold strong relevance for the SCO. The External Affairs Minister said that the SCO should lead advocating that global institutions need to keep pace through reformed multilateralism to make the UNSC more representative, inclusive and transparent. Finally, he stressed that to renew our resolve to attain the objectives of the SCO, it is essential that we keep in mind mutuality of interests and abide by the do's and don'ts of the Charter. Dr. Jaishankar arrived in Islamabad on Tuesday and attended a dinner reception for the SCO delegates, where he exchanged pleasantries with Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Both the leaders warmly shook hands and held a very brief interaction. This is the first high-level visit from India in years amid the continuing strain in ties between the two countries. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met Mongolian Prime Minister Oyun Erdene on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Islamabad. Both the leaders expressed pleasure in discussing ways to further strengthen bilateral ties between the two countries. India's President Draupadi Murmu has concluded a successful visit to Algeria. The President is now headed to Mauritania on the second leg of a three-nation African visit. In Algeria, the President was accorded a warm ceremonial farewell. She was seen off by the Algerian Prime Minister Nadir Larboe and other higher officials. During her one-day visit to Mauritania, President Murmu is scheduled to have bilateral meetings with Mauritanian leadership and interact with the Indian diaspora. Later in the evening, the President will leave for Malawi for the final leg of the three-nation visit. With an aim to bolster defence cooperation between India and Japan, Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi is on a 4-day visit to the island country. During the visit, he met Defence Minister of Japan, General Nakatani, and conveyed his commitment to further boost the bilateral defence cooperation between the two countries. The Indian Army Chief also held bilateral meetings with his Japanese counterpart, General Yasunori Morishita, and discussed plans for enhancing the army-to-army ties. "6G technology is 100 times faster than 5G, and India is moving faster in the technology sector. 6G technology is the future and the connectivity is the buzzword. And an international symposium was organized at the India Mobile Congress 2024. 5 MOUs were also signed between Bharat 6G Alliance and various partners. DD India's Arnold Thomas reports.
Technology, media and telecommunication industry leaders from across the world converged in the India Mobile Congress to deliberate on the global 6G programs. The respective national strategies for 6G and focus areas will be discussed at length in the event.
We followed the world in fortune. We march with the world in 5G. But when we work with all of you together across the globe, it is our aspiration that in collaboration with you, we will lead the world in 6G.
India has achieved the fastest rollout of 5G networks globally. It now stands at the cusp of becoming the leading contributor to the 6G revolution.
We have brought the various forums and institutions that are working on 6G already to come for an open dialogue, and the intent is to see how we can promote an open collaborative research by which India's requirements are embedded into what their thinking is.
The international symposium also saw 5 new Memorandum of Understanding signed, taking the tally of overall MOUs signed by Bharat 6G Alliance to 8.
It's a very good step to have signed this MOU with the Bharat 6G Alliance, because it shows that we all work jointly towards the same objectives to achieve global standards, to achieve affordability, availability, ubiquitous connectivity, and also simplicity.
We have different liaisons with other organizations, and Bharat 6G Alliance is the newest partner, and we are very much looking forward and try to shape industrial 6G and future together with Bharat 6G.
New cutting-edge research, key architectural principles and emerging technologies that will shape the 6G landscape in India and the world found a reference at the symposium.
Energy consumption is a big element of mobile networks, and we want to make with our use cases and application, we want to make the network, we want to make the planet more sustainable, but we have to get down with the level of energy that we are consuming.
The future promises to be seamless and will surely empower people at large with the advent of 6G. The technology also has the potential to bridge the urban-rural gap effectively. Anil Thomas report for DD India.
Vice President of the National Conference Party in India, Omar Abdullah, took oath as the first Chief Minister of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir on Wednesday. The oath was administered by Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha. The swearing-in ceremony was attended by Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge, National Conference Chief Farooq Abdullah and other leaders. It is noteworthy that this is the first elected government since the abrogation of Article 370. Omar's party has secured 42 seats out of 90, while Congress won only 6 seats, with a total of 48 seats for this coalition. Congress, however, has announced to not join the government but extend their support from the outside. The Union Territory was under presidential rule since 2018. That was revoked recently, paving way for the new government in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. The South Indian state of Tamil Nadu has been reeling under the spell of heavy rains. Capital city Chennai and its neighbouring districts experienced heavy rains over the past 24 hours. The rains were recorded at an average of 15 centimetre. Several areas including Tiruvottiur, Manali, TVK Nagar and Anna Nagar received over 200 mm of rainfall, leading to significant waterlogging and disruption. The heavy rainfall is due to a depression over the southwest Bay of Bengal. The depression is located 360 kilometres east-southeast of Chennai and southeast of Nellore. With more rain forecast, the Tamil Nadu government has declared a public holiday today, while flight operations at the Chennai International Airport have been affected with several delays and cancellations due to poor visibility and weather conditions. Next, we take a look at other stories making news in India. The National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority NPPA has set retail prices for 20 new drugs under the Drugs Prices Control Order 2013. These medicines target a range of health conditions. These low-cost drugs are used as first-line treatments for conditions like asthma, glaucoma, thalassemia, tuberculosis and mental health disorders. The Maring community, an ethnic group of northeast Indian state of Manipur, celebrated the annual pre-harvest Lamlai festival. The festival was carried out by men and women of Maring tribe dressed in their traditional attire, and it was followed by a presentation of cultural dance and performances. October 16th marks the 40th raising day of the National Security Guard. NSG is India's elite anti-terror force, renowned for its swift and flawless operations. Known as the Black Cats, the NSG exemplifies excellence in national security. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Russia ramps up assaults on Kiev. Ukraine reports dire frontline conditions. French President Emmanuel Macron speaks to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Bibi opposes the call for a unilateral ceasefire. And China says it will not promise to renounce the use of force over Taiwan, adding it is aimed at a small minority of separatists.
This week on Defence Dynamics, we will talk about the recent Army Commanders Conference 2024 held at Gangtok in Sikkim. We will tell you why these conferences are held and what do they discuss. Why was this Army Commanders Conference at Gangtok strategically so important? On the other side, in our neighbourhood, why is Pashtun Tahaffuz movement a challenge for Pakistan? And also we will be diving deep into the story that has been at the forefront of global headlines, the tension between China and Taiwan. And also, we'll tell you how Taiwan plans to defend itself. Watch Defence Dynamics on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. IST only on DD India.
Today's episode was all about unique ideas that help us adapt to this new world where so much around us is changing.
We are forming communities to practice regenerative farming and learn how to control these problems naturally.
We have invested in a new battery park to stabilize it, and that makes it also easier for us to phase in for renewables like wind and sun.
We're developing some AI tools which use imagery in our grow rooms. They can monitor them on a 24-hour basis, and they help us understand the prime time for picking so that we harvest those mushrooms at the perfect time of ripeness.
I have been using Ravichandran's vermicompost and have had good yields. Now I have used it for this 2-acre maize field. I'm planning to use it continuously. So far, the yield is good and the crops are doing well.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
This week on Defense Dynamics, we will talk about the recent Army Commanders Conference 2024 held at Gangtok in Sikkim. We will tell you why these conferences are held and what do they discuss. Why was this Army Commanders Conference at Gangtok strategically so important? On the other side, in our neighborhood, why is Pashtun Tahaffuz movement a challenge for Pakistan? And also we will be diving deep into the story that has been at the forefront of global headlines, the tension between China and Taiwan. And also, we'll tell you how Taiwan plans to defend itself. Watch Defense Dynamics on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. IST only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I am Tanvita Neja. China's Taiwan Affairs Office has said on Wednesday that the country will not promise to renounce the use of force over Taiwan. However, it said this is aimed at external interference and a small minority of separatists. China staged a day of large-scale drills around the island on Monday. It said were a warning to separatist acts following last week's National Day speech by Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te. China has over the past 5 years sent warships and warplanes in the waters and skies around Taiwan on an almost daily basis.
We are willing to strive for the prospect of peaceful reunification with the utmost sincerity and endeavor, but we will never commit ourselves to renouncing the use of force. This is aimed at the interference of external forces and the very small number of Taiwan separatists for Taiwan independence and their independence activities, not the vast majority of Taiwan's people.
Israel and Lebanon conflict continues with strikes from both sides, strikes hitting South Beirut early Wednesday. This comes less than an hour after the Israeli military ordered residents to leave part of the Lebanese capital. Smoke billowed from between buildings in hattrick after the first strike, which followed Israeli military spokesman Avichai Adare telling people to leave the area. The Israeli military issued the new order for residents living in southern Beirut to evacuate the region. A warning which usually precedes strikes on the area pinpointed in the Lebanese capital against the Hezbollah. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has opposed any ceasefire deal that would not halt Hezbollah from rearming. While speaking to the French President Emmanuel Macron, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said he was opposed to a unilateral ceasefire, which does not change the security situation in Lebanon and which will only return it to the way it was. Netanyahu and the Israeli military have insisted there must be a buffer zone along Israel's border with Lebanon where there is no presence of Hezbollah fighters. The United States on Tuesday voiced concerns to its ally Israel over bombings of Beirut in its campaign in Lebanon against Hezbollah. US officials assured Lebanon that Israel would tamp down its strikes on Beirut and its southern suburbs. The United States also asked Israel to improve Gaza humanitarian situation in the next month or risk military aid. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, in a letter to Israeli officials, said that they must take steps within 30 days to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza and to avoid legal action involving US military aid. The letter cited Israel's denial of the most humanitarian movements between northern and southern Gaza and burdensome and excessive restrictions on what goods can enter Gaza. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said that the letter was not meant as a threat but reiterated the urgency of increasing humanitarian assistance in Gaza.
We know that it's possible to get humanitarian assistance into Gaza. We know it can be done. We know that the various logistical and bureaucratic obstacles can be surmounted. And so it is incumbent upon the government of Israel to surmount those challenges and get assistance in.
Miller also spelled out reasons for the US to give a 30-day window for asking Israel to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza.
I think it was appropriate to send a letter and just say this has to happen overnight. We give make clear there's a short window in which we want to see changes because the humanitarian situation is so dire on the ground.
Next, updates on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russia on Wednesday launched several drone and missile attacks on Kiev and other Ukrainian cities. In a series of strikes, Russia fired 136 drones and 3 missiles. Ukraine's air defense claimed to destroy 51 of them. The launched drones caused fire at an industrial facility in the western Ukrainian region of Ternopil. Most parts of Ukraine are under air raid alert. Also on Tuesday, Russia conducted strikes on personnel and equipment of the Ukrainian armed forces. On to the US presidential race now. Georgia judge on Tuesday temporarily blocked a new rule requiring labor-intensive counting of potentially millions of ballots in the US presidential election. Georgia, where early voting began on Tuesday, is one of the 7 states likely to determine the contest between Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and his Democratic opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris. Here's more in our next report.
Voters in Georgia turned out in record numbers as the battleground state opened early voting for the 5th of November presidential election. Georgia had posted record turnout for the first day of early voting within 6 hours of polls opening, where 16 electoral votes are up for grabs. In many states, early voting is already underway. Georgia's Secretary of State said at least 251,000 votes have already been cast. Georgia is one of the 7 competitive battleground states expected to play a decisive role in deciding the election outcome. Early voting will continue until November 1st, with some counties offering additional voting on Saturdays and Sundays. Meanwhile, a Fulton County judge in Georgia ruled that certifying elections is a required duty of county election boards and they're not allowed to refuse the results based on suspicion of miscounts or fraud. Former US President Donald Trump on Tuesday rallied his supporters in Atlanta, Georgia, as voters in the state turned out in record numbers to cast their ballots early.
They did something to Biden that was amazing. They stole the election from him. I mean, I'm not a fan of Biden. Who could be? But they stole the election. They took it away like candy from a baby. And he's angry. And they're all angry. They're angry as hell. I think he likes me more than he likes her. Can you believe it?
Following an interview with radio host Charlamagne Tha God, US Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris spoke to a small crowd at a viewing party on Tuesday about her connection to Detroit and her plans for tax credits to raise kids and start businesses.
A big part of my plan is to build what I call an opportunity economy, which includes for home ownership, giving people who are first-time homeowners a $25,000 down payment assistance to be able to buy their first home.
Harris and Trump are locked in a tight race ahead of the November 5 election, which is expected to be decided by slim margins and where neither side can afford any defections from the main voter bases their parties count on. Ayushi Bhatnagar for DD India.
DD India's Amritpal Singh is with us from California for more on the story. Amrit, why is there so much enthusiasm in the voters of Georgia? And is it something specific to Georgia, or is this sentiment visible across the country?
You know, the enthusiasm in Georgia could be attributed to the contest being so very, very close. Both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have been concentrating. Donald Trump was in Atlanta, the capital of Georgia, to campaign. He rigged up the issue of illegal immigrants. Now, this is a southeastern state, really, and it is a swing state. The contest is very, very close. So both, with 16 votes in its kitty, it is a pretty sought-after state after, say, Pennsylvania, which is which is the largest in terms of the vote count of the electors in the swing states. I mean, there are other big states like California and Texas, etc., which have huge numbers, but they are either, like California is a blue state, or which votes primarily for or traditionally for the Democrats, Texas is a red state which votes for the Republicans, but it is the swing states which swing either way in each election, and in a way decide who the next president of the United States would be. And that's why the turnout, the record turnout in Georgia is of great interest to voters here, political watchers, and of course both parties and their candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Kamala Harris will be here on Saturday to campaign in Georgia. So essentially trying to woo the black voter, because the black voter forms a sizable population. They're about 1/3 of the total voters in Georgia itself. And if you see, Donald Trump yesterday said that illegal immigrants are taking away black jobs, essentially trying to woo the black voter base there. Kamala also trying to woo the black male voter. She announced a policy decision last week where giving 1 million loans, unsecured loans or forgivable loans as they're called here, up to $20,000 to people from disadvantaged communities, essentially looking at the black male voter, because some surveys suggested that the black vote was slipping away from the Democrats because they believe the Democrats haven't done enough.
Amrit, you mentioned of the swing states. Tell us, why are they so important in the US elections this time?
Okay, swing states are basically states which could vote either way. How the US is traditionally divided is that there are some states called the red states. The red states primarily or traditionally vote or tend to vote for the Republicans. The states which are called the blue states, which are mainly the coastal states, both on the east and the west coast, states like California, states like Washington, states like New York, New Jersey, Maine. They are Delaware. They are what are called the blue states. They vote traditionally for the Democrats.
All right, that was Amritpal Singh reporting from California on the US elections. On to Germany now. The auto industry was long the backbone of the German economy, but it's been in some trouble lately. Falling demand, competition from China. There are many problems the sector has been struggling with. Among the hardest hit companies is Volkswagen, and they are finding themselves in court this week. Volkswagen's struggles are being reflected in the overall troubles facing the country, which is grappling with a shrinking industrial sector and an economy that is forecast to contract for a second consecutive year. So Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin now. Lars, welcome to the show. Tell us what's going on with the German automotive sector.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, well, that's a great question. What is going on? This story is so ludicrous. Volkswagen is in trouble, as you rightly pointed out, after they've seen lower sales, most drastically on their once biggest market in China, but also domestically. They're in a desperate need to cut costs. And there were huge protests just a few days ago at Volkswagen plants over the threat of major job cuts, cuts that could cost thousands of workers their positions. Now, as part of their strategy to cut costs, Volkswagen decided to cut salaries for everyone, including management, and they also decided to not extend a raise to former managers that have actually retired early but are still on the company's payroll. Now, around 120 of them are fighting back. They say Volkswagen promised them a raise of 3.3% and a €1,000 bonus to compensate for inflation. And I gotta say, it's almost impressive, the gall of these people not being willing to make any kind of sacrifice and to just keep their demands up while a company is in crisis, partially due to their own doing. Because, as I said, these are not workers on the factory floors. These are actually former managers.
And Lars, why would you say that management is to blame for the current crisis at Volkswagen?
The company hasn't reacted fast enough to changing trends in the automotive sector. They were asleep at the wheel when it came to electric mobility, which allowed China to move into that segment at such a pace and with such force that they actually pushed Volkswagen and other older brands to the fringes of the market there. Now Volkswagen is suffering. However, to be fair, there are other problems too that are outside of Volkswagen's control. A few years into the so-called Verkehrswende, that is the organized switch towards electric mobility, trends in that market are generally not good. Car insurance company Hook just came out with some numbers. As of late, they say only 3.9% of customers are buying a fully electric vehicle, down from 6 to 7% last year. As of those already driving an electric car, a full 34% have said they wanted to switch back and buy a combustion engine car next. Now, that's partially due to frustrations over a lack of charging infrastructure. There aren't enough charging stations in Germany, and especially not enough fast, high-powered charging stations. Now, that is something the entire auto industry and the government are to blame for. Well, it seems to me that more than anything, the government has to step up to get their act together and invest in the infrastructure needed for an electric mobility future. And it's interesting to see numbers like I just quoted today of all days. That is just a day after the Club of Rome said the same thing. We talked about it yesterday right here on the show. These experts said that the e-mobility infrastructure has to improve. And there you have it. However, it's likely not just the government that has to act here. The companies obviously have to do their part, car makers as well as utilities, of course. And if they're fast, they might not lose too many more customers. But once those left, regretting their switch to e-mobility, they might be really hard to convince to come back.
Thank you, Lars, for those updates. Lars Holter telling us how the German automotive sector can be improved in Germany. Lars joining us from DW Berlin. All right, moving on to some sporting action now. Day one of the first test between India and New Zealand has been called off due to rain in Bengaluru. Persistent drizzle with its stop and start nature since morning, followed by proper rainfall, has resulted into day one being called off completely. The match is a very crucial series for the Rohit Sharma-led side as they aim for a World Test Championship final berth. If India can clean sweep the three-match series, India will be all but assured of a WTC final spot. India will next face Australia in an away series, and before that, this series at home will be important to garner some crucial points. All eyes will be on youngsters like Yashasvi Jaiswal, who has had a stellar run in recent times. West Indies pulled off the biggest heist of this T20 World Cup and qualified for the semi-finals against all expectations, knocking out one of the favourites, England. Having last beaten England in 2018, West Indies broke a 13-match losing streak and topped Group B to set up a semi-final against New Zealand. West Indies' win was all the more remarkable because they were without former captain and veteran batter Stephanie Taylor, who is struggling with a knee injury. In her absence, Hayley Matthews and Quiana Joseph found form and wiped away the bulk of their 142-run target. This is only the second time England have missed out on the knockouts of a T20 World Cup after being eliminated in the group stage in 2010. West Indies will take on New Zealand in the second semi-final on Friday. Lionel Messis' hat-trick led Argentina to a comprehensive 6-0 win over Bolivia in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying match. The 37-year-old treated his fans with a clinical finish 2 assists in a one-sided game. Messi, along with Alvarez and Martinez, gave Argentina a 3-goal lead in the first half itself. Fans did not have to wait long for a goal in the second half as Thiago Almada found the net in the 69th minute thanks to an excellent cross by Noel Molina. Messi scored twice in the dying minutes of the game to complete his brilliant hat-trick. With this win, Argentina moved to the top of the points table with 22 points from 10 games. Brazil thumped Peru 4-0 at home thanks to Rafinha's double penalty in the South American World Cup qualifiers on Tuesday. Rafinha gave the home side the lead courtesy of penalty in the 38th minute after Peru defender Carlos Zambrano was penalized for handball. The Barcelona forward extended Brazil's lead via another penalty in the 54th minute. Brazil dominated possession, giving their opposition no chance to recover. Late goals from Andres Pereira and Luis Henrique put the final nail in the coffin for Peru. Brazil had lost 4 of 5 qualifiers before their win in Chile, placing them 4th in the standings on 16 points after 10 games. Colombia demolished Chile 4-0 in Barranquilla to significantly improve their qualification chances for the 2026 World Cup. Goals from Davinson Sanchez, Luis Diaz, Jean Duran and Luis Sinisterra ensured Colombia maintained its spot in the second place in CONMEBOL, qualifying behind world champion Argentina. The team wore a special retro white kit marking the Colombian Football Federation's centenary, featuring the national flag's colors. The brilliant performance of Nestor Lorenzo's team took apart a woeful Chile side that remained rooted to bottom place in the 10-team qualifying group. Apart from this, Paraguay also boosted its chances of qualification after a 2-1 win over Venezuela. Real Madrid and France soccer star Kylian Mbappe has been accused of rape and sexual harassment at a Swedish hotel on October 10th following his recent trip to Stockholm. A Swedish prosecutor has opened a rape investigation after media reports suggested that Mbappe is the suspect. A report.
French soccer superstar Kylian Mbappe trained with Real Madrid as his representatives termed the allegations of rape against the footballer totally false and a slanderous rumor. Media reports from Sweden have quoted Mbappe as the subject of an investigation over the incident in Stockholm hotel on October 10th. Swedish prosecutors confirmed in a statement in response to the media coverage that a probe into an alleged rape at a hotel.
All right, Indian Minister of New and Renewable Energy Prasar Joshi is briefing media during the curtain raiser of the 7th Assembly of International Solar Alliance.
7th Assembly, the International Solar Alliance. We are very, very happy to have you join us as we begin the countdown for the 7th Assembly. The details have been explained by the Director General and Shri Ajay Yadav. I do not want to go into detail, but I can only tell. The 7th session of ISA will be held from 3rd to 6th November 2024 at the Bharat Mandapam, New Delhi. Leaders from across the world will convert during the forthcoming 7th Assembly of ISA to promote the widespread adoption of the solar power. As the President of the International Solar Alliance, I take this opportunity to call upon ISA members, signatories, and prospective countries to unite on the third threefold agenda at the upcoming Assembly. 1. Empowering the member countries to adopt the solar energy as the energy source of choice. Make energy access universal by supporting the solar entrepreneurs to scale up the local solutions. 3rd, mobilize the finance to speed up the solar deployment. We shall approach these agenda through the ISA's objectives One is amplified collaboration for creating investment opportunities and generating the millions of new green jobs. Increased cooperation on power trading, technology standards, financing regimes, and research and development. Informed and collective action to build the climate leadership in the countries. As you all know, in the battle against the global warming, one of our most powerful weapons is widespread adoption of solar energy solutions. In this regard, the International Solar Alliance was established as a joint initiative between India and France to address the climate change. Through initiatives like this alliance, India has taken significant strides in progressing the global climate action under the Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji. Owing to our intent and action, India is today recognized globally for its leadership in renewable energy, climate action, and sustainability. With India and France, ISA is also moving forward. Today, the ISA holds observer status at the United Nations General Assemblies, highlighting its global significance. With 120 members and signatory countries, ISA underscores the commitment of the nation to harness the solar energy in the fight against the climate change. We are actively promoting the adoption of solar energy among the member countries, especially those with abundant sunlight but limited access to the technologies and funding. This focus has helped many of our African partners to further strengthen this clean energy movement. As a president, I say I am immensely proud and would like to congratulate the co-president France on bringing this alliance to the forefront of the global energy transition. Our efforts and the commitment are paving the way for the sustainable future for all. We are fully aware that international collaboration and the actions are just not an option, but a pressing necessity for all countries to come together and address the challenges in the energy sector. As a global community, we are at a critical point in the journey towards adopting the renewable energy. In this crucial decade for the climate action, the ISA and its member countries are playing a vital role as we work towards the 2030 agenda and its sustainable development goals. Their efforts will ensure the energy access for everyone, enhance the energy security to support the economic growth, and facilitate the energy transition. Let me also assure you that the ISA is firm in its commitment towards the member countries. We are providing extensive support, capacity building initiatives, insightful analytics, robust regulatory guidelines. The goal is to create an ecosystem that attracts investments and ensures the sufficient energy supply to meet the global demands. I am happy to emphasize that through these forums, India is positioning itself as a key player in the global efforts to combat the climate change. All this while, we are simultaneously working to achieve our own energy goals. In fact, just last week, India has achieved 4 lakh installation under PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. This is rooftop solar, which we have planned to connect to 1 crore, 1 billion households. With the almost 91 gigawatt of installed capacity in the solar power, India has added approximately 17.44 gigawatt solar PV capacity between January to September 2024. Solar power constitutes to 20% of India's total installed power capacity, showing the growth rate of more than 26% compared to the previous year. We must always remember that the International Solar Alliance emerged from the shared vision of harnessing the solar energy's vast potential. Solar power is leading the clean energy transition because it is adaptable, adjustable, and affordable, and allows for the localized energy generation. The impactful work of ISA has played a crucial role in improving the key social issues like employment, livelihoods, climate change, biodiversity, gender equality. This inspiring progress should motivate everyone. Next year, that is 2025, marks a significant milestone as we will celebrate a decade of this landmark initiative. During the 7th Assembly, let us lay a groundwork to enhance the impact and outcome of the ISA even further. I look forward to welcoming you all to this upcoming 7th session of the ISA Assembly. Thank you. All the best.
So that was the Indian Minister of New and Renewable Energy, Prahlad Joshi, addressing the 7th Assembly of the International Solar Alliance. We'll keep you updated with more updates coming from the Assembly of the International Solar Alliance. For now, it's a wrap in this bulletin. News and updates continue on DD India. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.